Hello, friends. I failed to get online and make a recording last week to share a word with you, but it's COVID times, remember? And I said I was going to do that. Well, we have just completed driving since Sunday afternoon, and now it's Thursday, through big weather changes. We drove out of eastern Washington on Sunday morning, and then starting Monday drove over through Montana and Wyoming into Nebraska and Kansas and Oklahoma and into North Texas, where we are now at Sharon's mom's. It's been a great trip, but we had to drive through about 80% of the time or more in rain, cold temperatures. We had about 6 inches of snow in Casper when we woke up on Tuesday morning. But God's good and gave us a great trip. Well, one thing, though, that we did yesterday, our last day of travel, we stopped for about 30 minutes in Shamrock, Texas. And Shamrock was the place where God first gave me an opportunity to enter into full-time Christian ministry. Got to stop at the church for a few minutes and visit with Mark Howard, who's the pastor now. But Mark was just one of those teenage boys in our youth group 46 years ago. Well, God's been good to us. And what I wanted to share with you today, just to let you know, we haven't forgotten all of our friends on Facebook and in Ukraine especially. Ukraine is so much in our heart, and we're so ready to be back there. But God knows what's going on. We trust Him. And we've had to live a life of trusting Him because His plans are always better than ours. Just to share a little testimony about how in the world did I ever go to Shamrock, Texas? How did I get into Christian ministry? You see, in my university years, I was preparing to be a high school choral director. That was my desire from the time in junior high, probably, because I love to sing. I love choir. It's a great time. Well, I went to Baylor University, majored in music education, and was preparing with the desire to someday be a high school choral director. Well, as God had other plans, in my last semester at Baylor, I was doing we called it student teaching at the time, probably have different words for that now, a different terminology. But to be a teacher, you've got to practice. You have to get into the schools, and I was did some middle school and high school work, or elementary and middle school work for my student teaching. And God was just showing me, that's not what I want you to do, Bobby. I mean, I didn't really like what I was experiencing. Well, my off-campus job, Sharon and I had married with me still having a year of school left. My off-campus job was at Safeway. My dad had worked for Safeway, and because of knowing people, hey, it always helps you get a little bit better start. So I'd had about 3 or 4 years working for Safeway and had gone into management training. I said, well, I want to teach school. Hey, this is good work. It's honorable work. It's good pay. I was in the management training program, and it was 1974, around January, February. I was going to graduate there in the spring, and I said, I'm not going to teach school. I'll just stay at Safeway. So we're finishing out the school, but I've got this good job. Sharon and I are married and living in Waco, Texas, and doing fine. I was so miserable working for Safeway, especially Sundays. I mean, I like the work. In fact, there's a lot about working in retail grocery work that I loved and still would love if I was a young man and wanting a good job. But God was showing me there was something else for me. So as we got into the last part of that spring, and I'm at Safeway, I became more miserable. Say, okay, is that what I'm going to do when school is out? Just work for Safeway? Because I don't want to teach school. God started speaking to me about something I had never thought about. What about Christian ministry, vocational church work? Well, I had no idea. I knew I was miserable doing what I was doing, working at Safeway. On Sundays, I was the most miserable person to be around, working in the grocery store on Sunday. Well, God wanted me working somewhere else on Sundays. So what did I do? Well, I knew I wasn't doing what I was happy doing. I knew God must have something else. He sent me to Baylor gave me some good music training and some great educational training, was exposed to some wonderful people that helped me to see that life was so valuable to serve for the Lord. Well, what I did, I said, well, I don't know what's going to be, but this was probably in April. I said, I'll go over to the religion department that's right next, their building's right next to the School of Music. And I went in there and I saw where churches even had left word there they were looking for people to work on their church staff. So I just left my name. Here's a guy that's going to graduate, and he'd be interested in looking at some of your positions. Really didn't know what God wanted at that time. Well, we talked to basically two churches there in May. One was in Midland, Texas, and then one was in Shamrock. Well, the church from Shamrock contacted us first, and some dear people came from Shamrock to Waco and visited with us. I knew nothing. I hadn't grown up in a church that had an organized church music program, so I didn't know what that was all about. Well, this church in Shamrock wanted a music and youth director, minister of music and youth. I'd never gone to camp as a teenager in my own growing up. Well, long story short, we finished Baylor, and God opened the door. Go to Shamrock, Texas, to First Baptist Church. Be their minister of music and youth. I had no idea what it was. I really didn't. I had musical training, and I had grown up in a church, but not that kind of church, not the kind of church that had an organized leadership program. Well, God was good to me. Gave me a pastor named Jim Scott, who's with the Lord now, and Jim was patient with me. He taught me how to be a church staff member, and the people loved me. There were some wonderful people at First Baptist Shamrock, including Mark Howard, who's the pastor there now, and his family, and Scott Wells, who has been at Richland Baptist Church in Richland, Washington for well over 25 to 30 years now. Well, we've really been blessed. We went to Shamrock, didn't know what we were doing. But God showed us that His plans are greater than ours. So how does God call you? Well, sometimes it's by making you miserable, doing when you don't know what you're doing. But what you're doing doesn't bring you joy, doesn't bring you peace. Ask God what He wants for you today. Maybe He doesn't want you to move to Shamrock, Texas. But He showed me, Bobby, yeah, you're right. You don't want to be a high school choral director. It's a great job. You don't want to work at Safeway the rest of your life. It's a great job. I've got something for you. Surrender your life. Follow me in vocational ministry. So, 1974, Shamrock, Texas, First Baptist Church was the beginning of a walk which has now been over 46 years. Well, I'm going to tell you about the next big change in ministry and life that came for us the next time I talk to you. But we started out in Shamrock in 1974 and then went to Roswell, New Mexico, then back to Texas, to Port Lavaca, San Antonio, and La Mesa. Things really changed after that. But may God bless you. Find where God wants you. If you're miserable, ask God, God, why am I miserable? I have a relationship with you. God wants His best for you. He doesn't want you to be happy. He wants you to be at peace with Him. He wants to give you joy. In COVID days, there's more to life than what you've always been used to, because God has something great for you. He's true. He keeps His promises. God bless you. I hope you can get some rain and cool weather sometime like they're having in North Texas now. Pray for my friends in Oregon and Washington, where the fires are burning so greatly, and for my friends in California. God keep you. God is in control of all this. And one day soon, we get to be with Him. God bless you on this COVID Thursday from North Texas. Talk to you again.